Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. Okay, so this is not going to be a super lengthy video, but there is this interesting question that I have, right? This interesting idea, and it's not really my original idea. I mean, I guess it kind of is, but it's kind of not, right? So I was hit up on Twitter by Haveyu, I think it was Haveyu27, and they asked the question, how come Darkseid has not invaded the dark multiverse? Could there be someone stronger than himself there? Now, this raises a really good question of, with regards to the dark multiverse, is there a dark multiversal version of Darkseid, right? Like, is there a dark multiverse Darkseid? And I would feel like the answer is yes, like there would have to be. My question is, how would he exist? In what form would this dark multiverse Darkseid exist, right? Because when you look at Darkseid in the main DC multiverse and you look at the nature of the dark multiverse, they almost kind of go hand in hand. The reality is depending on what source you're reading, right? If you read like Final Crisis, for example, one of the things that Grant Morrison says is that all the times that Superman ever fought Darkseid, he wasn't fighting true Darkseid. He was fighting like some avatar of Darkseid or something like that. You know, it was never really the true form of Darkseid. And then when that happened, he would just dominate Superman, right? It would just be insane. Whether or not that's still in continuity, I don't know. I'm sure somebody somewhere will contest it. But the nature of Darkseid in and of himself is that he's just kind of the representation of evil. He's evil personified, is basically what he is. Now, you do have characters out there, right? Like Lucifer, Morningstar, different things like that. But in the main DC universe, and I would say even including Vertigo, like he represents evil in its most pure form. The idea of Darkseid is to essentially dominate the wills of all, right? That's why he's always hunting for the anti-life equation to dominate the wills of everybody, depending on how the equation's been written. It's been written inconsistently over the years, but regardless, it allows you to, in some form or fashion, take over other people's will and basically take away their desire to be independent, essentially. And so as a result of that, he's always kind of gone on these various campaigns, and Darkseid doesn't really care. He doesn't really care about things like love and compassion and so on and so forth. He cares about acquiring power. A really good example of this is during the New 52 when Justice League first launched and Superman ended up on the planet Apocalypse of Darkseid. Then like when he came back, he was like, I heard and saw some of the most heinous things. It's a horrible place, right? Like it's a terrible place to live that only the absolute strongest can withstand. Those who are too weak, they perish, right? And so as a result of that, you're talking about a pretty sadistic and evil guy, right? Like this is a guy who sent one of his henchmen to Earth 2 in DC Comics and they killed all the superheroes and then that was it, right? I mean, there was a new era of heroes who basically came up, you know, who ended up rising instead, but the guy's pretty screwed up. Then you look at the dark multiverse, and the dark multiverse is essentially the result of every negative dream and fear that anybody's ever experienced. All the negativity in existence, whether through dreams or conscious thought, has essentially given form to the dark multiverse. Now, it wasn't always that way. Really, Scott Snyder kind of built on this originally with Dark Knight's Metal, and then he actually added to it with his run on Justice League, right? So you had Perpetua, who was basically tasked with creating the multiverse, which she did, and then she created the World Forger, she created the Monitor, and she created the Anti-Monitor. And the World Forger, his job was essentially to create worlds, and those worlds that were deemed as being unstable, like for whatever reason they just didn't need to exist, they would be given to Barbados, and Barbados would in turn destroy those worlds. Now, eventually Barbados turned on the World Forger and then just created his own multiverse, more or less, in the form of the dark multiverse. That's kind of where that comes from, right? All those terrible dreams and nightmares that manifest. Now, the reality is that when you look at the dark multiverse, it exists in the form of essentially twisted variations of heroes, right? So like Bruce Wayne's parents die, he becomes a Green Lantern and then kills everybody, right? Like he becomes a murder machine when he merges with Cyborg, he becomes the Red Death when he merges with Flash. All these things are really kind of given birth to the really dark versions of Bruce Wayne. Now we know that with the Metal series coming from Scott Snyder, we're gonna have like a whole host of other things, right? So like we saw the evil versions of Wonder Woman during the events of Dark Knight's Metal. Presumably there's evil versions of Superman as well. Like every evil version of any character that exists out there, born through fear or dreaming it, exists in the dark multiverse. And so if that's the case, if the dark multiverse is really just the most evil versions essentially of people, since that's what people fear the most, and Darkseid represents evil in its most pure form, then wouldn't Darkseid be at home in the dark multiverse? What would that dark multiverse version of Darkseid look like? It'd be different if Darkseid played the role, if he was like Galactus, right? Like he does what he does because it's a necessity. He's not really good or bad. It's just the role that he plays, right? That'd be different if that were the case, right? But Darkseid is constantly on the pursuit to find the anti-life equation. His regard for the sanctity of life is not there. That's the nature of the conflict between himself and Highfather, right? Highfather's a good guy, even though he's kind of a dick. But like Darkseid, he's just evil, right? He's just a bad guy. And so if you have someone that evil and that twisted in the main DC universe, how would that version apply in the Dark Multiverse? Maybe he's just like really good. Maybe it's like it's the thing that Darkseid fears the most is like being a good guy. Darkseid in the Dark Multiverse, like he's chill. He's just like, he's a really cool dude, right? Like he's not like strange or anything, right? But like he's just a cool guy, right? You're just like, hey man, like what's up? And Darkseid's like, what's up, bro? How's your day coming along, man? And it's like, I mean, it's pretty good, you know. I got some things that I'm worried about. Well, tell me about it, man. Like sit down, dude. Like here, have a beer. Tell me about what's going on, man. Just lay it on me, you know. And the next thing you know, you and Darkseid are smoking some OG Kush and like chilling, man, watching Teen Titans. Maybe that's what Dark Multiverse Darkseid is, right? I'll be honest with you guys. I would love to sit down with like a cool version of Darkseid, puff on some OG Kush, and watch Batman the Animated Series. Man, I'd so be down with that. Like, that would be legit. Like, I think it'd be cool. I'd be like, Darkseid, man, like, what do you think about the Joker? He's like, oh, I like the Joker. Joker is hilarious, man. Like, he's so funny. Like, I would definitely do it. Anyway, this is what happens when I just talk about things and I don't really plan videos out. I just hit the record button and just start speaking. I end up doing this where I just kind of ramble on about nonsense for like 7 or 8 minutes. You know what we need? We need a video about like Barbados in the Dark Multiverse versus all the forces of Darkseid and Apocalypse. I'm not gonna make that video. You know who should make that video? Tyler, an Imaginary Axis. Tyler, an Imaginary Axis. That guy needs to make that video. Tyler, go make that video. Like I wanna see that video. Here's what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to get on Twitter and tag me in your tweets, but I want you guys to get on Twitter and I want you all to go tweet to Tyler and I want you to say, Comics Explained says you need to make Barbados versus Darkseid. Just tweet that. Just tweet that out to him and just be like, make that video. Because I think it'd be pretty awesome, right? Like Tyler's really entertaining to watch. But anyway, guys, I've rambled on long enough. I've gone on about nonsense long enough. I think it's an interesting idea, right? I think a Dark Multiverse version of Darkseid is an interesting idea, right? Like Lightside, I guess is what he might be called. But I think it's a cool idea. The Dark Multiverse has always kind of intrigued me, right? Getting away from being, you know, silly and goofy. Like in all seriousness, it's always intrigued me. Whenever you think of a character like Batman, it's like, okay, well, this guy he uses fear to his benefit, but like for the most part, he's a good guy, right? Like he's doing what he believes to be the best thing. Superman is in a lot of ways incorruptible unless you're looking at like Injustice or something along those lines. But you look at the traditional heroes of DC, yes, they're a little bit flawed, but for the most part, they're basically good guys. And then you get the Dark Multiverse where everything gets turned on its head and you get the darkest versions of these characters, right? So Batman really set it all off. That's what really blew up the Dark Multiverse and made it so popular. But when I look at that, then I start looking at things like Dark Multiverse Green Lanterns. What would Dark Multiverse White Lanterns look like if they would even exist at all? What would Dark Multiverse Black Lanterns look like, right? Like how would all that work? What would like the Dark Multiverse Larfleeze, what would that look like? I mean, there's just all these cool little things, you know, that kind of exist out there. Dark Multiverse Teen Titans, you know, there's a lot of cool stuff they can do. That's one of the reasons why I've always said, I feel like Snyder and them should just focus on the Dark Multiverse, right? Like Snyder and Greg Capullo, all they do is write Dark Multiverse stories, right? Just tales of the Dark Multiverse. That's all they give us, right? I mean, we do know what the White Lanterns would look like insofar as like using the power of the White Lantern, Sinestro created a universe of Lobos. So like, okay, so that's true. Like we know what that looks like. We don't know what like a Dark Multiverse, and the Dark Multiverse Black Lanterns are pretty much the same as they always were. Dark Multiverse Black Lantern Darkseid looked legit. Like that was kind of nuts. But yeah, you know, Tales from the Dark Multiverse, right? Just write a whole bunch of those, right? Like tons of those. That's what I would do. Just like an entire encyclopedia series of one-shots, right? Like 100 one-shots telling those stories forever. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace. I want to say thank you to all of the new patrons who have joined patreon.com/comicsexplained. I want to give a shout out to Henry, Young Typhon, Elias G, David JS, Jacob H, Ben, John H, Jason C, Austin S, Austin H, James O, Matt N, Jeff R, Joey M, Stephen Z, Sloth Like Lou, David C, John H, Lean and Mean. That guy asks questions all the time. Adam K, Genosis 916. I want to say thank you to all of you all. This list is growing all the time. Thank you for joining the Patreon.